Hola a todos. ¿Pueden confirmarme en Facebook y YouTube que se escuche, porfa? Y también aquí en Discord.
Hola.
Bueno, mientras tanto, voy platicando. Hoy vamos a tener la mock interview demo. Ah, es básicamente una mock interview que ustedes van a poder ver. Obviamente va a ser en inglés. Ahorita voy a dar las instrucciones en español, nada más para que esté claro. Y bueno, durante la mock interview no vamos a responder ninguna pregunta, pero pueden ir mandando sus preguntas en mensaje y al final de la mock interview vamos a estar respondiéndolas. Cualquier duda que tengan, pueden escribirla, o sea, ya sea relacionada directamente a la mock interview. De preferencia el problema no, porque pues, el problema no tiene como mucho chiste, pero igual si tienen alguna pregunta pueden hacerla
Sí.
sobre qué pasos siguieron, por qué hicieron X pregunta, o cualquier cosa que se les ocurra, pueden preguntarla. Ya saben, en inglés o en español las vamos a responder. Aquí en Discord, salvo las dos personas que van a estar en la mock, por favor tengan sus micrófonos apagados para no interrumpir. La mock interview va a durar aproximadamente 50 minutos. Después de eso vamos a estar platicando un poco de la mock interview, van a poder hacer preguntas, vamos a estarlas respondiendo. Y dependiendo de cuántas preguntas tengan, a lo mejor la clase termina antes de la 1:30. Bueno, si eso es
Yo
todo,
voto porque mientras que Andrés no se ponga a leer los comentarios de Facebook o de Discord, cualquiera se pueda poner a chismear, a contar spoilers de los problemas que estamos dejando. Mientras que Andrés no se ponga a leer los comentarios, no hay problema, diré yo.
bueno, Andrés, no te vayas a spoilear, por favor, no hagas trampa, no googlees el problema.
Ay, no, no sé, amigo.
Bueno, si quieren
Ah,
pueden platicar
Bien.
cosas de los problemas en los comentarios, les vamos a estar respondiendo en los
Ujú.
comentarios,
antes,
quizá.
antes de empezar, me gustaría decirles a todos los que nos están viendo, todos los que nos están viendo hablan español, así que lo diré en español, este, que aunque esto es una mod interview y yo ya hice las que me correspondían para entrar al internship, como siempre estoy nervioso como la primera vez, así que
Para que sea más real, para que sea
para que vean
más
todos
real.
que esto es real y que pues no importa cuántas veces lo hagas, los nervios siempre van a estar ahí, pero lo importante es superarlo.
Sí, obviamente, bueno, Andrés nos ha dado el problema, entonces esto es lo más cercano que podemos hacer a una mock interview. Obviamente puede salir mal, no lo sabemos. Salir mal me refiero a que no termine el problema, digo, obviamente va a intentar resolverlo y seguramente lo va a conseguir, espero.
Lo averiguaremos, .jpg.
Lo averiguaremos. Pero bueno, esta es una forma de hacerlo, no tienen por qué. O sea, esto es una demostración al final, digo, tanto de
Ah,
si sale bien como de si sale mal.
exacto,
Así
puede
que
ser
bueno,
de lo que tienen que hacer o de lo que no tienen que hacer, así que es ganar, ganar.
así es, no hay playback aquí, todo es en vivo y a todo color, incluso lo que va a salir mal posiblemente. Bueno, ¿están listos Oscar y Andrés?
Sí.
Ready.
Bueno, Oscar va a ser el entrevistador, ya se presentó, Andrés va a ser el entrevistado, también ya se presentó. Bueno, estamos usando Discord como medio de comunicación. Las mock interviews que hacemos nosotros también las hacemos en Discord y también usamos Google Docs, que en este caso es la que vamos a usar. En las campañas, como ya les comentamos, usan diferentes herramientas. Microsoft usa Microsoft Teams, Facebook usa BlueJeans, Google usa o teléfono o
Meet.
Google Meets,
Ujú.
o algo, o bueno, algo parecido a Google Meets, pero que es interno, y también en el editor. Google ahorita, antes usaba Google Docs, que es por lo que empezamos a usar Google Docs porque es horrible de usar. Ahorita ya usa una plataforma interna que ya tiene al menos un poco de indentación y cosas así. Facebook usa algo llamado CoderPad, Microsoft usa CodeShare. Así que bueno, eh, en cuanto quieran ustedes empezar a hacer mock interviews, pueden mandarnos un mensaje. De preferencia, únanse al Discord porque ahí es donde las hacemos. Bueno, esto es novedad, pusimos comanditos en la transmisión. Creo que si ponen exclamación Discord, le sale el Discord. Am, Bueno, dicen que se compraron una Wacom para hacer dibujos y diagramas para las entrevistas. Hay algunas plataformas que tienen eso, hay otras que no. Por ejemplo, CoderPad sí tiene un área donde puedes dibujar, pero por ejemplo Coacher no la tiene. Entonces, algunas veces no puedes dibujar. En ese caso, las sugerencias que les podemos hacer es si ponen webcam, pueden hacer el dibujito en su hoja de papel y enseñárselo al entrevistador. Eso es especialmente recomendable para cuando no tienes dónde dibujar, pero hay veces en que no se puede y tienes que explicar el dibujo con puros caracteres, lo cual es horrible. No funcionó el comando F. Creo, a ver, a lo mejor, si alguien puede ponerlo en YouTube, creo que en YouTube sí funciona. O en Facebook. No funciona.
Dijiste.
¿O sí funcionó? Sergio, ¿funcionó? ¿Puedes confirmar que funcionó? La verdad no tengo idea. Somos nuevos en esto de ser streamers.
No funcionó.
F.
Porque también aparecería en Discord el mensaje del Discord.
No, según yo, cuando son los reply commands no aparecen.
No funcionó, güey.
Lástima. Bueno, ya lo
Maldito.
arreglaremos. Si no, ahorita mando el Discord. Bueno, lo
Es
mando de una
porque
vez.
no le pediste a tu CTO de bots que lo hiciera, por eso no funciona.
Bueno, somos nuevos en
Sí
esto. Sorry por
funcionó, sí
las fallas
funcionó, güey, sí
técnicas. Ahí está el
funcionó.
Discord por si alguien se quiere unir.
No, tú lo hiciste, chale.
Bueno, ahí se los mandamos de todas formas. Ok, bueno, vamos a
Un bot
empezar porque si
manual,
no se nos va a hacer más tarde.
es un bot manual.
Documento abierto y cámara encendida. Listo.
Ok, bueno, les toca.
Okay. Are you ready?
Hello,
Yes.
yes, I'm ready.
Okay, so a super quick introduction about myself. I have been working for Facebook for 2 years. For the first year, I work in Messenger search, learning and improving the search experience, especially on web. And during my second year, I work on Facebook gaming machine learning and working in the software engineering side of machine learning. So before we start into a more formal program, why don't we spend a couple of minutes and you tell me a little bit more about yourself, your education, work projects, experience, and things like that.
Yeah, sure. Well, my name is Andres. I'm been studying computers engineering systems in Mexico. I'm currently in my last semester. Also, I like to code a lot. I have been participating in hackathons, which I was fortunate enough to win second place in 2 of them. So that's more or less what I like to do. But I also like to participate in some personal projects. For example, I have this PB compiler. That PB is the name of the language I have developed for. It's a programming language written in Spanish that compiles into a C++ language, and I think it's going to help a lot of people in my country to learn to programming.
Okay, especially that last project sounds super interesting. Can you tell me a little bit more about how advanced is your like the language project? Like,
Yeah,
do you have a compiler right now? Do you have an interpreter or something like that?
yeah, perfect. I can answer that. Yes, I have that. Right now, it's like in beta production. It's working, but
Mm-hmm.
for small cases, I'm trying to make it bigger. And yes, the compiler is written in Java. I think Java is a perfect language for start projects because it's really easy to migrate that into Linux and Mac OS because of the Java virtual machine, and that's the way it's working. Also
Mm-hmm.
the syntax or the grammar, it's based on Python because I think Python is a perfect start point for any programmer. It's really easy to read or easy to implement, and also it helps you to get a clean code because the indentation is part of the syntax.
Okay, that's really interesting. And this project, do you develop everything just by yourself, or do you work with other people?
Yeah, thank you for asking. Actually, I developed it all by myself. It was part of my
Wow.
school project, but after the project finished, I took it for myself, and I'm trying to develop it a little more day by day. Also, I developed a tool for Visual Studio Code for syntax highlighting, so more people could use it without the fear of facing a blank blank page.
Okay, yeah, that's really interesting. Let's see if we have time at the end to talk a little bit more about that.
Yeah, perfect.
But before times move on, what do you think about starting a coding problem?
Yeah, I'm ready.
Okay, let's start with something simple. If you have seen any of the problems that I'm going to present to you, don't worry, I have a ton of them. So just tell me about it, okay?
Perfect.
The first one is relatively common. We are going to create a super, we were talking about languages, so we are going to test your ability in that. We are going to create a super simple language detection tool. Especially, we're going to focus on the use of capitals. So the idea is we are going to have 3 rules. I assume that you are reading the document. So if I write something, are you able to see it?
ASAAD.
Okay. So there are going to be these 3 rules. We will say that a word is correct if every character is a capital. Like, hello, this is a valid word. Or USA, or MX, or Google, or something like that is a valid word. That is the first rule. The second rule is if none of the characters are capital, that is also valid. For example, if Jose is a valid word, or Jeje is a valid word, okay? And finally, if just the first letter is capital, that is also a valid word in our language that we are creating. So something like El or Juan is also valid, or Cassandra is also valid word, okay? So these are the only 3 rules that we are going to have. And the idea here in this problem is to create a function that is going to take a word and it's going to tell me if it's a valid word in our language.
Yeah, perfect. So let me, is that everything about the questions you want to tell me?
Yeah, that is basically the problem.
Perfect. So I would like to ask some few more questions. Well, first I will repeat everything so I can clarify, I can see that I understood. So basically they are
Sure.
three types of valid. The first one is all capital. The second is all lower. And the third one is all capitalized, meaning that only the first
Just
one.
the first one.
Yes. But what will happen if I have, for example, an empty string? In that case, I may not have any characters to test these rules.
That is a really good question. What do you think should happen if I give you as an input just an empty string?
Well, that's a funny question. Maybe depending of the way we are developing this one to see that it's a valid word. Don't have it a word. It's kind of good because there is nothing to test and there is no alarms. So I will say like it will be good practice to say that it's a valid question, a valid input, because we are saying that
Yeah,
nothing is wrong. Nothing is wrong. So
I completely agree with you. Especially when we are splitting a whole sentence or a text into just tokens. Yeah, the ability to have the empty string be true or be a valid word is super useful. So yeah, let's go with that.
So let's see, empty is good. The other questions I have is, for example, what happens if I have a composed word? For example, what happens if I have this El Juan? That are 2 words, and then 2 words, if we analyze them separately, they are valid. But if we analyze it like just one word, meaning that the blank space is part of the word, like for example, this is a underscore, that will mean that that's false because I only can have capitalized, no double, no camel case. So
that is a really good point. Let me be super clear with this. The inputs are going to be words or an empty string, if you consider that a word. So just word, just a sequence of letters. Just a sequence of letters.
So it's a word, and this word is going to be a type of string. We can assume that.
Sure. Do you have some language in mind before we start talking about details? For example, in C, you don't have strings and things like that.
Yeah, perfect. I see. I think if it's okay for you, I would like to use Python 3.
Okay, so let's start using Python Django. Yeah, it is a string, a normal string of the language.
Perfect. Let me think a little more about what's going to happen in here. So, well, it's going to be single word, not use it. Does this word have it's going to be UA? I don't know if it's going to. Well, with Python, it's not going to be any problem because like UTF-8, it's a standard for Python. So, well, I will not have any problems with that. So, if it has accent, I think it's going to be okay. So
yeah, that is also super important. Yeah, the input could have accents or things like that.
perfect. So I think I have small cases. I have seen a little edge cases. So
Mhm.
the response, you want me to say that if it's correct. So let's talk about the output. The output,
Mhm.
I think I personally I will say a boolean is a good return value to say if true if it's a good, false if it's bad. But how about you?
Mhm.
Do you think it's a good idea?
I completely agree with you. That makes total sense.
Perfect. So let's have boolean as an output, and yes, I think I will not need to modify the input. So I think I will tell you that maybe I could start defining the signature of the function. Maybe it's
Okay.
um, is grammarly correct. Grammarly correct.
Okay.
Might do a nice name for this function.
Mhm.
And
That was good. Yeah.
let's call this as str string. It's going to be of type
Mhm.
str. This is a notation in Python. If you are not familiar, this
Okay.
arrow just tell me what kind of function. It's not really doing anything but telling the compiler that this is going to be a string. But you
Okay.
can
So
return
just
anything.
type hinting.
Yes,
Okay.
and this also can put something like here, like saying that the return value I'm expecting is a boolean. I will do this a little bigger, like that. And perfectly. So let me tell you a little more of my idea here. Let's put
Mhm.
this. So my idea, it's pretty straightforward. The first one I have is just like to check the iteration from word by word, right? That there are two start points for this problem. So the first start point is, does the first char is Mayus, and the second is it is minus. So yeah, let's
Mhm.
talk about the first path. Is does the first char is a Mayus? When the first char is
Mhm.
a Mayus, there are uh, just one thing that could happen. There are two things, sorry, that
Mhm.
could happen. The first thing is like, sorry, let's start this point. The second char
Mhm.
is minus.
Mhm.
The other path it's going to be the second char is minus. So yeah, after that, we have to do another kind of. Oops, sorry, this is going to be here. And it's going to be here. Yeah.
No problem.
Another thing of validation. If third chart is minus, if third chart or other
Mhm.
or later is minus, well,
Okay.
that's going to return false. Either way is going to be true, right? Because we are not expecting any more majus char in this string. And if it's majus, well, this is going to be the other case. It's just going to say that uh, it's minus. In this case, it's false because we are just expecting majus things. and where this is going to be in linear time, just like going one by one. And the other one, if it's minus, well, we are just expecting this. If any other character is going to be, if char return false. If it doesn't return false in these steps, well, that means it's going to be a true. It's going to be a good string. I think this is going to work nicely, and I think it's going to be the best one because we have to ensure that every word, every character in the word has to be analyzed, and this is going to be in linear time. So I think in time will be the perfect solution, but I don't know if you think it's going to be a good solution.
Okay, I have a couple of questions just to be sure that we are on the same page. Let's suppose that this is kind of the pseudocode of the idea that you are going to try to implement next, right?
Yes.
What will be the time and space complexity of this solution, this specific solution?
Yeah, perfect. We can analyze it with an example right here. Like maybe I can take hello for example, and like I doesn't need another string because I can work with this one perfectly. But I might need just 2 pointers, right? Like the first pointer like is going to tell me what currently I am, and the other one is going to tell me the past, the last character. So I can or maybe because I'm just doing this, I could just work with one pointer, and I just need to use more ifs and else to say like in which path I'm doing, like kind of a really basic how do you
a bunch of URLs.
NFD, no, well, yeah, like
an automata, like a finite set machine.
Yes, that's what I wanted.
Okay.
What I wanted to do to remember. Thank you. So yes, in time it will be linear because I'm just going one by one until the end. So
okay, that's important.
Let's say because yeah.
Oh, yeah, you can write it and delete my own.
Yeah. So this is going to be time, and because I will be just using one or two pointers, we will figure that in space will be constantly based on the input, right? Because I'm not going to use more than the input.
A couple of more questions before one.
Sorry,
you think I have a couple of more questions. Do you think that there is a better solution in terms of space or time complexity? A better solution than the one that you just proposed?
In space complexity, I think it's not going to be any better that constant time.
Okay.
But in time, also, as I told you, maybe there is not going to be any better time because we cannot do it with less comparations because I have to ensure that I have seen all the characters. That meaning that I have to iterate from every character one by one at least in the best case. So I think it's not going to be in average better time. Obviously, the best time is going to be in constant time of two iterations, meaning that the best time it's going to be if I have something like this, right? Because we are just analyzing the first one and gaining the second, and it's going to finish. And if I have a lot of inputs like this, well, the average is going to be 2. That it's going to be constant. But that's just in a perfect case scenario. For general purposes, in different kinds of scenario, it's going to be linear.
Okay, that sounds correct. And the second idea is, do you have some other approach in mind right now of solving the problem that does not is the solution?
Well, right now I think I'm not having another proper solution. Well, I have various ideas. Like for example, as I told you, maybe I could use two
Pointers?
2 pointers. Yes, just analyzing if I'm starting from the point 1 or point 2, and just saying like, okay, if this is if the pass is minus and the second one is minus, well, just moving and analyzing that this pattern does not repeat again, because everything has to be minus. And if it's starting minus, just waiting, expecting that everything is minus, right?
Okay, completely agree with that. So, and yeah, I also agree that this solution seems to completely work for all the cases I'm thinking right now. So why don't we move on and try to go the solution?
Yeah, perfectly. So the first thing I will do is like defining these two cases. Well, the first thing I think I want to do is return straightforward return true. That meaning no, it's not going to be the
Okay.
first line. This is just going to ensure me that I don't forget it later. Because if I have a empty string, the for loop and all the if is not going to enter because there is nothing inside.
Completely agree.
And I will just do like this: if a string, meaning that if the string exists, just to know, yeah, because if I have an empty string and I try to access the zero, it's going to throw an exception. So if a string,
Okay.
just to ensure that the string exists, and string 0, it's in Python, I believe that this is a method our a string possess that it's lower, meaning that it will return true if all the string is lower. Also remembering that a single char is also string, so that's going to work. A is lower. If all the string is lower, it's going to return true. We are going to do something, right? Right now, I don't know what, but we are going to do something else. We are going to do another thing. So let's go in this part. If it's lower, it's the most easy part. We are just going to do a for loop for, and it's going to be each char in, and we can do something like this. Well, actually, I could do it, like something annotation like this, like going from the first character until the end, because well, I can return that, but I can afford how do you say, doing this iteration all over again, because I'm just waiting
Just
that
for the first one.
everything, yeah, like everything is lower, right? So I just
Okay, sure, go ahead.
I can just do something like this, like string is lower, and that's what I want also. So return is lower. This is going to work because of two reasons. The first reason is like I am already ensured that the first is lower, so I'm only expecting lower cases. So that means that all the string in general is going to have to be lower. So return string is lower. If it's lower, well, that meaning it's a good string, and that's going to return true. If it's not lower, that meaning that there exists at least one character that is not lower, and it will return false. Well, that's what we wanted, right?
Sure, go ahead.
So yeah, I think that solves the second part. The first one is a little more tricky because it has some more things to analyze. So the first character is a minus, right? So let's just do something like this, like analyze the second string if, well, yeah. So here I also have to be cautious because, well, if I at least I have to have two strings, right? So there is this how do you say, special case like if a string, if length of a string is equals to 1, that will return true. Because just one letter is going to fulfill the correctness of this. And that ensures me that I can do something like this later. That means I can do even better than this. I can do minus equal to 1. And I can save this line of code, right?
Okay.
Yep. And I mean that now I ensure that the string is going to be at least of 2 characters for this next part.
Okay.
So else if a string on the second position is lower. That means if the first one is minus and the second one is lower, what will happen? Well, the second one is going to be lower. That means that the rest of the string, it has to be sorry, minus again. So
okay,
just saying and length of, oops, sorry, I think my keyboard get nuts. Yeah, I saw it. And the length of the string is bigger than 2. I mean, I have at least 2 characters to more than 2 characters to analyze. That means if the string is lower. Oh, sorry. Yeah, it's going to work. Just return if a string from the second position till the end is lower, meaning that it's let's put here like the first one is sorry, this is all minus.
Okay.
The second part checks for capitalized.
Okay.
I will do this a little smaller so we can see the code better.
Yeah, I will see them better. Thank you.
And the next elif, well, meaning that is upper. I think it's the name of the function, and the same the length. I have at least 2 to see that that's going to be all upper. Just return if the rest of the string is upper. And yeah, why I'm doing this plus better than 2, that is going to be a question maybe you have. That's because you have something like this and this. This is going to be always correct. You have something like this and this is going to be incorrect. But so that's why I have to I have to check for this situation. So if it's more or equal than 2, because you have something like this and this, maybe it's not going to get inside. Oh, no, I think I was being over cautious with this piece of code. Let's take it out, and if it's okay for you, let's run.
Why are you able to take it out? Just to be sure that we're on the same page.
Sorry?
Why are you able to take that piece of code?
Yeah. I was being over cautious because maybe I was going to be doing a little more like to ensure that I'm not accessing
Mhm,
part of the code that is not working. But I remember that
mhm.
here I put that this if is ensuring me that uh, after the first line of code, I'm ensuring that I have at least two elements, because if I only have one, the first if is going to help me with that, right?
Exactly. Okay.
So that's why I took up this sorry, oops, these two lines of code, right? I just was a little cautious, but now I have time to debug it, and I think it looks better this way.
Okay.
So let's
Uh,
if it's okay for you, maybe we can do some test cases, like for example these. Also,
yeah. Let's do one simple test case, or even better, let's do one tricky case. What do you think could be the most possible input that maybe can kill your solution?
yeah, well, I guess of course, like for example this, it's an invalid question, right?
Okay, let's do that input. That's interesting.
Yeah, perfect. So let's go inside. So the first if it's going to say if ask if it's the length of this is less or equal to 1. That's not possible, so it's going to go to the next line. So it's going to check for the first character, and I ask if it's lower.
Mhm.
If it's lower, that's correct. And then it's going to get inside of the if statement, and it's going to ask if all that's like all of the string is lower, and that means that every single character of the string is lower. And because we have in this position
Mhm.
an upper, is going to return false, and that's what we wanted, and that's a correct answer.
Okay, I completely agree with you. And given the analysis that you did earlier, I think that the solution is almost going to work for every case that I'm thinking right now. Just before we move on to the next section, let's have this code like fixed. Let's create a copy of this code, okay?
Okay.
In the next page, just to play a little bit more. Imagine if I give you this already created function. It's called just call this x. This is number of capitals in Word, and I give you as an input a string. So in this variable right now, we are going to have the number of capitals in that word. Do you think that having that information will help you solve a problem more easily?
Yeah, perfectly. Actually, if I have all that information, well, that only means two things: that the number of capitals, well, the easiest case is like x has to be equal. I will do this in outside the function. So to explain my idea, if x is equals to the
Sure.
length of the string, that's a correct, because this means that all are upper. Then if x equals 1, this is also correct. Sorry. Because that means that it's capitalized. And
Okay.
if x is equals to zero, sorry, that means that's also correct because it's all minus. Does mean that if the x is not one of these trees, it's an incorrect input.
Okay. I completely agree with you. Just I have this interesting input. What happens if I give you the exact same input that
Yeah.
you did last time?
That's going to be wrong because it's going to
Exactly.
think that it's capitalized. I was thinking right off, but it's also really easy to
Solve it.
solve, because I just have to put here an string, a string. I can do two things, like
Okay.
just in order to use more your function and have a little more fun, I can do something like this. and yeah, like X has to return the same of doing this for just the first character.
Interesting, yeah.
And that's going to be capitalized. Both of them has to return 1, and
okay, yeah, both of them has to return 1. But
yeah.
both of them could return 3 or 4, right?
Sorry?
What happens if, for example, I have this input? In that case, both are going to return 2.
Yep. No, because as you can see, this is just analyzing for the first character.
Oh, yeah, got it. Completely that point. Okay, that is also a really good second solution. And I think if my time is not mistaken, let me check. We still have like 15 minutes left. So why don't we move to the next problem? What do you think?
Yes. Perfect.
Are you ready?
Yeah, I'm ready.
Okay. Because of the time, I'm not going to tell you a super complicated story for the next problem. I'm just going to go directly to the problem, okay?
Okay.
So let's move to the next page. And the problem actually is really simple to translate it and show it to people. We are going to have as an input a string, okay?
Okay.
And this string is only going to have the characters A, B, and C. Those characters, A, B, and C. Okay? Or even better, A, B, and C, just lowercase to make things even simpler. So a valid input could be something like this, or like, I don't know, that's a name. Something like this, or whatever, okay? Or also, this is also a valid input. You get the idea, right?
Okay.
I want as an output the size of the smaller substring that contains at least an A, B, and a C. That is the output. I want the size of the smaller substring, given the original string, that contains at least an A, at least a B, and at least a C.
Okay.
That is the whole problem.
Perfect. Well, I have some questions. Like, for example, what happens
Sure.
if there does not exist this smaller substring? What should I return?
Can you give me an input where that is the case?
Yeah, what is the case if, for example, like, for example, here, in this case, the smaller substrate does not exist. Should I return like minus
okay.
1 or something like that?
Okay, that's a really interesting input. There is definitely a problem going on. So how do you communicate that there is a problem with the input?
Yeah,
What is the approach you could use?
as I told you, like a string size is always going to be of type of an integer. So if I return something like it's not a positive integer, like -1, that might be a way that the user of this function is going to notice that something went wrong.
Yeah, that's correct. And to be completely honest, that's a really C mentality, like return an error code, something like that. We're using Python. So maybe you could throw an exception. What do you think?
Yeah, throw an exception can be also a good good practice. Just like in Python, it's really simple. It's just the throw, just to put the throw syntax, like throw the throw and the raise function. And do you think it's going to be the name of this error? Like, well, I could make this raise and just like say something like sorry, no substring
valid input
in input.
That is even better. I completely go with that.
Perfect. So that solves the problem of strange input, like for
exactly.
empty string or nothing inside. So okay.
Because we are on Python, If I pass to this function or the class that you are thinking, if I pass an integer or a boolean or a null or a none in Python, just raise that error.
Yeah. Oh, you're telling me that if for some reason input is not of type string.
String, yeah, you could raise just for the sake of time. It's not was tricky cases. The input is just always going to be a string that contains only A's, B's, and C's. That's the idea.
So let's code this like I start coding just for the sake of time, and I will still tell you a little more of my ideas. So get ABC substring. It's going to be the name of this function, and it's going to be the string, and it's going to be the type of str, and I will return a string. In. Yep.
Okay. How will you solve this problem?
And
That is
yes,
interesting.
the problem I'm just thinking where first I'm going to be really straightforward and check if it's even worth to analyze the input. So if a string so let's say set string.
Okay.
If this string is equals to the set of the set is with this, the set of A, B, and C. Yeah, sorry. Also, like as we told, like we are only talking about letter cases. I kind of remember that you told me that because of time, only
Yeah,
ABC.
just ABC is lowercase.
Yeah. Well, if they does not exist, we will raise the exception.
Okay.
And this will help me for empty strings and strings that does not contain, and even if something.
Exactly.
So that way I can ensure that I can analyze the string that it's going to be worth it. So in order to do this, I have to the smart substring. I have to check like I'm thinking of case of a binary search. Like the best case scenario is I have the A, B, C in any way, in any permutation. Really inside of this, so I can check it for the three. Like for example, let me say you an example. Like if the solution exists inside of this, maybe it will be inside of half of the solution, right? Or maybe it's not going to be in this half. Maybe it's going to be in another half. So maybe just like iterating through the space solution. Like first, I will analyze all the string, right? The ABC exists in the string, right? So next, I just going to be iterating through less than 3. Yeah, like first I'm going to like get my ideas straight here. Like first I'm going to do like imagine like this is like 7 like 10 words. Like I'm going to analyze to the 10 words like straightforward, right? Like inside these 10 letters there exists, maybe I go to the 5 and say like, does exist in this 5 or does exist in this 5? It does exist in this 5. Well, that means like maybe I could do better, no, and go lower. Or if it does, I can go higher and like searching this domain of possible solutions. So
okay, I am getting you ready. Okay, yeah.
Yep. Does that sound good? So let's go inside.
That's like a really interesting idea. Just to be sure, again, can you tell me what would be the time complexity of doing that?
Yeah,
what would be the worst case solution?
Yeah, the because I have to go for this iteration the first time in linear time. That's going to be the first impact. And to do the second impact of this function is that the binary search, that's going to be where n is the number of letters in the string, and the second impact is going to be log n also because that's the time of the binary search. So I will have to do this in log n in time. And in a space.
Okay.
That's going to be in constant because I will not going to need other things that the lower. Well, in the binary search we need the lower point, the medium point, and the upper point. So that's going to be always constant. I will fix these names in the coding, but just for sake of acceleration.
Okay.
So do you think it's a good solution?
It's a really definitely interesting solution and a really good solution. Let me see if we have time for it. Okay, we have time to do one thing, not both. You want to try to give me a rough idea of the code that you will do to solve this problem?
Yeah,
or
perfect.
do you want to keep a little bit more time thinking about other solutions?
I think we have plenty of time to do this code. Also, I think I will use some of handy functions that I'm not writing, but I could do it. They are pretty straightforward. So let's do this really easy. Let's define three integers.
Spend the last 3 minutes thinking about code.
Lower solution. Well, let's do this L, M, and sorry for the names, but for sake of time, I'm just going to hurry. So the lower, it's like they exist in three because I have three to check for the ABC. The medium, well, that's not matter. I can put anything because I will recalculate it later. So let's put 0 just for the sake of time. And the the most straightforward solution will be use everything. So let's just choose the size of the string. And while L minus U minus upper, let's do this. Like we calculate M. M is going to be lower plus upper integer divided by 2. And if solution, if exists solution, meaning that the ABC exists in the in the string of analyzing the string of size, all the strings of size M. Well, then I will just res equals 0 also. That's going to be, so res is going to be safe is going to be equals of M, and I just will recalculate L. That I just want to see if I could do better. So that means that upper has to go lower. It's going to be than medium minus 1. Else, if it don't exist in that solution, that means that I have to do words. That means that lower has to go bigger, and just return the rest. And I think this is going to work. I don't know if we have time to check the correctness of this function with an example.
I think that we do not, but I get the original idea of your code, so I think that will be more than enough.
Perfect.
We still have like minutes. So imagine if this was a real interview. I'm not going to answer the question that you are going to ask me.
Are you telling me this is not a real interview?
What kind of question will you ask at the end? I give you a short introduction about myself. Imagine if this was a real interview, what kind of question? I'm not going to answer them. I just want to hear them.
Yeah, perfectly. Well, for the first thing I would like to ask, maybe because you told me you're from Facebook, and I know you're from Facebook, and I was thinking in my head from the beginning that what are the principles of Facebook, like moving fast, and what is happening with Facebook in the real life. Like maybe Trump was banned from a lot of accounts. Like you were in court. Maybe I would like you were in search. So my question will be like, what were the problems you have to solve when you get in trouble for people searching copyright things or searching for anti-Semites groups inside of Facebook? How do you manage that? Something like that.
That's a really good question. Do you have anything else?
Yeah,
To answer them, but that is a really good question.
yeah. But other question I will make is like, what would be like, how it's like to work in Facebook right now with COVID situations? Does that was making harder with you to communicate and to move fast? That might be another question I will ask.
Those are really great. Okay. I think that we are running out of time, but that was really amazing. Thank you for your time.
Thank you to you also, Oscar.
Okay. Y podemos, no, I was going to say, y podemos cambiar español, but no, we are going to continue in English, right?
I think there is any other question. I think we are finished, so let's see if there are questions in the chat.
Now is the time for a lot of questions. If not, I can start thinking and telling you about the feedback that I have and the problems and things like that. So first of all, let's see if there are some questions in the chat.
I haven't seen any question.
No, I think there is not any questions.
Oh, well, we have from Carlos.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, he has a couple of comments. The one, well, the problem, we share the problem. He said that Mayus is not a word, is upper letter.
Yeah, but I think like
Uppercase letter, sorry.
I want to explain why I use Mayus. Like most of the time, you don't know the English letter, but you have the keyword, and in any keyword in the word, like maybe most of the time is in English, and you have the block Mayus. So people is going to understand you. You say Mayus because in the keyword exists the word.
Okay, I think I have a contradiction with that.
Oh, yeah, go ahead.
Because in English keyboards, it's not called Magus or block Magus, it's called caps lock. So it's a little bit different.
Yeah, maybe you're right.
English is on.
But yeah, maybe
Okay,
also if my interviewer is going to say like, "What's Mayus?" I would just explain it, and I think that's going to solve the problem again.
Totally agree. Yeah.
So let's move to the feedback section. At least the things I'm not totally sure if in the past sessions we talk about feedback helper. If not, Sergio, do you want to comment a little bit about this tool? Or Manuel, whoever controls the screen, because it's really
well.
really
I
good.
can open it. Let me.
Yeah, sure.
Okay,
If someone wants to create or do a mock
change
interview,
this.
not as an interviewer, but an interviewee, it's going to be good. Let's wait and see if Manuel can open it. It's free, you can use it. We developed here. Sergio basically do everything, or did everything.
Well,
So yeah, go ahead, explain it.
I'm not sure if I can see it. So basically, it's a flow diagram that you can follow, and the intention of this is at the end, you will be able to crack your interview.
No,
it
but we are
involves.
talking about feedback helper.
Oh, feedback helper. Oh, okay, I misunderstood. Sorry. So since I heard Oscar said interviewee, I thought we were talking about the diagram.
Yeah, we are going to talk about the diagram. Yeah.
Okay. I cannot see the screen. Is it just me?
I just you. Imagine if you were able to see the screen.
Are you seeing my screen? Well, my webcam.
Oh yeah, I can see it now. Okay. Yeah, so this is the tool we're using right now to make mock interviews. So it is really helpful because, well, apart from the settings that you can select, the important feature here is that you can write and then it records the time that you are writing something. So basically, at this time, Oscar was acting as an interviewer, right? So while he was writing notes, the application was recording the time when he was writing those notes, that we can like follow up everything that the interviewee did, and then at the end we can evaluate more accurately how was the interview, if it was a strong hire or just hire or not hire at all. So we have several options in that system. And this is one that we're using here at Nutria. It's really helped us. So yeah, if you want to be an interviewer or just do some mock interviews with your friends, and you can use also this feedback helper and just share your thoughts.
Yeah, here is a link. You can use it if you want to. And if there is no more question, well, there is a question from Oscar, from another guy called Oscar too. Do we have a list of creative problems like this, or just random picks from code forces and lead code? The companies do have a list of problems. Like this is the 10 or 100 or 50 problems that they are going to ask in this moment. You as an interviewer, those companies, you are able to pick whichever problem do you want, or even a problem that is not in this list of problems. You have a lot of liberty in that side. But usually, yeah, there is a list of specific problems that they have been asked a couple of times, and that are just having a lot of questions or to test if you really know the language or things like that. In the case of Nutria, you can do also the problems that you want. Usually, we do problems that we have already solved, and we like to ask the same problem to a lot of people, because maybe one person is going to solve it in a completely different way that you were thinking. Maybe another people is going to struggle in some, and maybe you can start to see patterns and see where people stuck and where people just fly over and things like that. So it's a good idea to, if you're going to mock interviews, to ask the same problem or similar problems to a lot of people to have an idea, a better idea how a specific person performed during an interview. But
Well,
if there
also
are,
in the companies, it's not
Mhm.
well, not exactly like the companies has. Obviously, the companies has examples of the problems, but most of the
Mhm.
companies allow the interviewers to choose the problems.
Mhm.
But I think they review like the chosen ones, and also they can take like a problem and modify it, like put some context, or for example, when Oscar starts saying the first problem, if you read the problem at lead code, like it's a plain text. You need to do this. But Oscar mentioned context like we are working in a system, we are focusing in the validation of the string, something like that. So that's also something that like that the interviewers made.
It depends a lot of the people that you are interviewing with. Some people will tell you a completely history and with characters and problems and things like that. Another just give you the problem straightforward. It really depends.
Okay, do you have any other questions? If not, you can
I have
start with the
another.
feedback to Andres.
Okay, I'm going to keep this feedback super open or not specific to this interview, just the thing I will usually write feedback about, okay? And not all of the things that I'm going to say apply to you. The good ones and the bad ones, okay?
Okay, okay.
The first thing is the presentation. When I give 2 or 3 minutes to someone to present themselves, I want to hear what they are working on, and specifically what they like to work. Maybe you like to work on IoT, or maybe you really like web, or maybe do you really like machine learning. I want to see some passion in there. Yeah, you are usually doing a career, like a full-time, you are a full-time student of computer science or computer systems, something like that. But I also want to see that you really love it, that it's not just a job, you really enjoy it. Because if you don't enjoy doing these things, you are not going to be happy in this kind of works. Uh, I want to see that you are a rounded individual, that you are able to work on your personal projects, that you are able to work on teams, that you maybe have some extracurricular activities, that you are not a robot, that you are a person. Also really like to see some kind of hint that you're really learning, that you are someone who are constantly trying to understand and learn more about different topics. The questions. It's really important that when I throw
Well, I
a
want to add
problem to
something
you,
else
you
before
really,
that
yeah,
about the
sure.
introduction. I think another good suggestion is you have like ideas like before your interview, prepare your introduction, but not the complete text, not like something that you will be start reading in that moment. Why? Because if you only read, you sound like a robot, and it's not really natural. I suggest you better prepare some points. Like, I want to talk about my clubs at the school, my passion about front end, that I have been learning, I don't know, React for the last 3 months, something like that. And during your interview, have these points and talk about that.
Completely agree with Manuel's point. When you are doing a real interview or even a mock interview, you are going to be nervous. You are going to completely freeze and forget about everything. So if you have a list of points of things that you want to talk about, it's going to be so useful because now you can see, okay, I'm going to talk about my school. I'm going to talk about my personal projects. I'm going to talk about this. And you are not forgetting about some really important thing that you wanted to say. So please, if you're going to start doing mock interviews, have a list of things that you want to do and or to tell in your presentation. It will be super helpful for you. What other things? Moving on to the questions. When I give you a question, the first 2 or 3 minutes are really important. I'm going to see how you handle that problem because ideally it's something that you have never seen before. This question is something that you have never solved. Maybe you have solved questions similar to this, but not this specific problem. So I want to see even more important than the problem, how you are going to solve the problems in general. Like, are you start thinking about edge cases, hacky inputs, ambiguous solutions, how you are going to handle them, what are the solutions that you are using? For example, especially with text, are you assuming that everything is ASCII and just English characters? Are you about Spanish and accents or Japanese or things like that? Are you thinking about that? Are you thinking about positive and numbers? Are you thinking about blah, 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 blah? Or these assumptions that you usually do? But I want to hear them. I want to hear what are you thinking about. This is also really important, especially in a mock interview. I'm not able to read your mind. Usually, the people that are going to do mock interviews with you are people that does not know anything about you. So please read or think out. Express what you're thinking. Going to solutions, I think usually a good idea just state the brute force solution. Like, okay, if I don't care about at all about time or complexity, this is a way of solving a problem. It's super simple and it's doing things like that. So please, ideally, you want to state the brute force solution. For example, for the first problem, the idea is super simple. You create a function to check, is everything lowercase? Is everything is, or is just the first one uppercase? You have these 3 functions, and you call these 3 functions. And each of these 3 functions are relatively easy to implement. So that's a brute force solution. Now, when we start talking about solutions, please take a moment, maybe a couple of seconds, maybe you can stay in quiet for a bit, and think, are you doing some extra work? Or is there a better way to solve the same problem from a different point of view? Because usually the problems that we are asking have a ton of different ways of solving them. So maybe the first idea that you just come to mind, maybe it's not the correct one. But think about what would be a completely different way of solving the same problem. For example, in the first problem, the usual idea is creating a bunch of if-else and checking if the first character is uppercase, the first character is lowercase, and then you all the subsequent cases. But maybe another different way of solving a problem is, okay, what happens if first I count how many lower and uppercase characters there are? And then the thing is super simple. There is just 3 lines and that's it. That is also a different way of solving a problem. For the second problem, the idea that Andres told me is using some binary search. That is a really good way of solving a problem, but there is an even better way of solving the problem that just is a linear time and just seeing the letters once. But it's really different from the idea that he was telling me about. So there is usually a different way of problem. And usually there is a simple way of solving the problem, for example, in Python, and you can be able to do the solution in 30 lines at most. So there should be, ideally, a relatively easy way of solving the problem. When you have these different, maybe you have 3 or 4 different approaches, and you think that one is better than the other, go deeper. Tell me why one is better than the other. I want to see how you handle different possible ideas and different solutions, and why are you choosing one over the other. Really important, what is the worst space and time complexity, and what is the average time and space complexity? Usually we only talk about what is the worst case. And if you want to just talk about what is the worst case, that's completely fine. If you want to do some extra work, tell me about the average solution, an average time and space solution. Also, because usually people that are seeing this stream are from a competitive programming background, especially in interviews, think about when is just this is good enough. Maybe there is an even faster solution, but the code is just going to be completely impossible to do in 1 hour. Maybe the n-log solution is good enough. You don't have to go for the linear one. Maybe this is good enough. Maybe the constants are good enough. So it's important to know when to stop, especially for competitive programming people. It's especially important to know where to stop. The part where I have a lot of feedback for this specific interview is with the code. I don't really know Andres a lot, so I'm going to make some assumptions here, okay? You can correct me if you want to. The only feedback that I have for the presentation for you is that I would have really appreciated more, or that you will tell me a little bit more about how you handle working in teams. Like the project that you are doing for the language is really cool, but it's just by yourself. So maybe a little bit more. I know that you, for example, told me about the hackathon, and you obviously the hackathon is a team project. I want to also hear what were the struggles, what were the problems, and things like that. But specifically talking about code, let's go to the first problem. And I hope that Manuel is able to move the screen to the first problem, to the code from the first problem. Usually, my not just for this interview, but for almost every other interview, are almost the same. I always talk about the code, usually more than everything else. So I'm going to expect that you are able to see the first code, the code that I'm writing right now. Okay, so the idea is you're going to use Python. I'm not the most confident person in Python, so if I say something wrong, please correct me. But the first thing is, I'm quite certain that in Python, the idea is to use a snake case. Like all the built-in methods, all the libraries that you're going to use, almost everything is using a snake case. So the idea that you as are creating a new function and is using camel case is kind of strange. It may be you use Python, but just by yourself and not handling Python in teams or in some code review or things like that, or that you have not developed a library in Python that is used by other people. Because maybe that you will know or remember that in Python, the snake case is usually the go-away for creating names. Also, I really like that you use type hinting. Especially in C++, there is a lot of options that could go types. Like, what are you making a reference? Why is the reference const? Or why is the reference not const? And things like that. In Python, we don't have a lot of those questions. But yeah, a really good starting point is knowing that in Python, you have types, or at least type hints. So that is a really great plus. The only strange thing is that this is not a correct syntax. This is the correct syntax. But I always forget about that, so it's okay. In general, it's okay if you mistake or don't remember a specific part of the language or a function that you're going to use. It's okay. But if you do that, because an interviewer is that you don't really know the language, or that you are not super comfortable with it, or that you have not used it recently, or things like that. And that are not really good flags. Another really good flag is that Boolean does not exist in Python. And I think that is the only language that uses Boolean. Everything else uses Boolean. Other things. I really like comments. Comments are really good, especially because the people that are going to review your code, or that when you go to the hiring committee, is not exactly the same people that did the interview. So the only thing that they are going to have is the interviewer feedback and this code, the things that you are writing. So comments are going to give them a lot more context. But even better than comments is code. So if you can express the thing that you're going to do in comments in code, I think that is even better. So for example, you will do something like, minus. Have this as a variable. And then you can have code that reads like English. If everything is minus, then you can do things like that. Minus. And then this strange code and this strange part is a lot easier to understand for someone else. Another relatively red flag is that lower is not a valid Python method. If I'm not mistaken, it's lower. Not even a snake case, it's lower. I don't know why Python. In general, the first problem was really great. You was able to translate the original idea into code and find the bugs. Usually, when you write the first version of your code, there is going to be problems, there is going to be bugs, there is going to be redundant things. So when you were reading the code again, you were critical about your code. So that is a really great point. Explaining why are you deleting things or why are you adding these conditions is also really important. In general, the first problem, super okay. Obviously, using the second idea, the problem is even simpler. Because I think that is basically like 4 lines, and these 4 lines almost read like English. So that is even better. The second problem is a lot more interesting. Because there is, we did not have as much time as in the first one. So before I forgot, you did a really great, amazing job with the time and space complexity analysis. It's also really important. When you propose a solution, have in mind that usually they are going to ask you why this solution is O(n), or why this is constant, or why this is quadratic. Are you able to make something instead of quadratic n log n or things like that? We really prepare for these kind of questions. And into that, this is also a red flag related to the first solution. Sorry for moving. Related to the first solution, you almost always use this idea of a string start from the first position or a string starting from the second position. And doing that, doing a string and then from the first position onwards, if I'm not mistaken, that is creating a new string. So then your solution is now out of one time of space. And if that is the case, then or your solution, your time and space complexity is wrong. But I don't think that is the case. I think that you did not know or did not remember that doing these kind of things like this, are creating a new string. Because you did not remember that, then you are again sending the messages that you are not super comfortable with Python or with the time and space complexity of doing something things in Python. Especially in Python, this thing happens a lot because some things that are super common or super simple are really bad in terms of PKO analysis. Except the language. What other things? What other things I have in feedback? As we mentioned before, because we are not native English speaker, usually we forgot some question or so the meaning of some word or how to pronounce something. This happens all the time. So please, first of all, don't worry. Second of all, usually the person that are going to interview you are not from the US or from England or from Australia. They also are using English as the second language. So usually their accents are also not super great. Because that is really common that you misspell something or that he or her misspelled something or was not able to understand what you did. No problem in that. Just as an advice, if, for example, they use the terminology capital, then you just continue with that terminology and use capital. If they are using the terminology enum, use the terminology enum. If they are using data, use data or things like that. Try to follow the terminology, the terms that they are using. But talking about the second problem, we did not have a lot of time to say a lot. I think the point of view, but I think that it could be even better if we have spent a little bit more time thinking about not just writing code, but how the solution will work. How will you be able to the second problem is a really hard problem I'm not totally sure if the person that of the people that are seeing this transmission have seen this problem before. It's from code forces, a relatively old deep 2 problem. So if you have not seen this problem, I almost think that the best thing for you is try to solve it by yourself. I assure you that there is a constant in terms of space and linear in terms of time solution. Just sing the string once and that's it. It's relatively easy to get the solution once you have the idea, but it's not straightforward to get to that idea. So you have not done this problem before, I really recommend it. Or if you have not asked this problem in a mock interview and you are going to be the interviewer, this is a really good problem too. Some things that we are thinking about here, exceptions. For example, if you tell me that you are comfortable with Python, you should be comfortable with how to create an exception. Or if you are telling me something in Java, then how you throw an exception in Java. If you are telling me about C++, okay, how you create or throw an exception in C++. I'll say that. In general, it has to say, besides that is a really interesting problem, because it's the second problem of the interview, usually we are more to the point. We don't spend a lot of time thinking about questions or doing test cases or things like that. We try to go directly to the point and see as much information about the candidate as we can. That is the idea of the second or even the third problem. So if you are already on the second or third problem, you are doing great. First of all, you are doing great. Second of all, if you want to be or move a little bit faster, that's also completely okay. And yeah, I think that is basically the feedback that I have.
Yes, just to say, like, yeah, I do remember like doing that, because strings in Python are immutable. That's correct. It's going to create a new string, but also the time and complexity still holds true, because, well, it's going to do the string in constant time, because it has to copy each character, and after that, after it constructs, it's going to do the is lower in constant time, but as a second, it's not going to be an iterated loop. So, well, it's going to still hold true to constant time. It's going to be to n, but because like we don't take in account the constant numbers, well, it gets smaller to n.
Completely agree. I'm not a Python expert. So if someone knows the answer to that question, I will trust with you.
Well, we also more or less answered the question. Yeah, they exist better complexities according to Oscar.
I can give you the solution, but I'm not really sure if do you want to see them. You want to see the at least the solution that I have.
No. Let it as a homework.
Okay.
Well, do
I'm
you
going
have
to
any
give
other
the link
questions?
in Discord, just if you want, and I'm going to mark them as spoilers, just if you want to see them.
That's another possibility. Do you have any other question, guys? We have a couple of minutes. Well, when you think in your questions, only to remember, if you want to start practicing, in our opinion, mock interviews are the best way to practice for a real interview. It doesn't matter how many problems do you made, it's not enough. You need to practice your think aloud part, especially. And also another good comment for Andres is in any moment he was quiet, so it's something really important. You need to be talking all the time.
You could say, please give me a couple of minutes or 2 minutes or 1 minute, just let me think about the solution. That's completely okay too. But if do you want, please don't spend 30 minutes or 11 minutes just not saying anything.
Yeah, I would say that if you request for time to think, only use that time to, let's say, order your ideas. I mean, in some moment, I was like really nervous during my interview, and I was like, okay, give me only a couple of minutes, and I take that minutes to breathe, clarify my ideas, and continue. Why? Because at the end, the interviewer is evaluating your thinking process. So if you be during that time thinking, it's like lost of information for the interviewer. So if you were quiet 2 minutes and you return with the best idea, okay, could be good, but could be also like, okay, probably the guy searching internet the solution. So it's something really tricky to manage. especially if you don't have a webcam or something like that. So in my opinion, only this is also a personal opinion, but if you can, you don't be quiet. Only you can be quiet to order your ideas, as I mentioned. Take some minutes to breathe, order your ideas, and continue. But all the part of think aloud. In my opinion, I don't know if some of my partners have another ideas.
Yeah, that's true. And well, other thing I could say, like, yeah, I did miss a lot of my syntax in Python just because I wasn't not practice. But as so for everyone to remember, like before you got into the your really code interview, you have to do a lot of mock interviews, so you are not going to mismatch any case sensitive or syntax guidelines. So yeah, practice a lot. That's going to help you to solve that problems before the important date.
Yeah, and at the end, the syntax is not really important. Like, obviously, uh, while you clarify, okay, I know that exists, that function in Python and is something like that, it's not really a problem, in my opinion. Okay, so last time, do you have any other questions about the interview, mock interviews, etc.? Could be in English or Spanish, doesn't matter. No. Well, so
If not, we can spend the last couple of minutes showing them the diagram that Sergio created a couple
Yes, I
of
was
months
going to
ago.
say that.
what?
It's super useful, especially if you're starting.
Sorry, I didn't understand.
We're just saying that if you could share the diagram.
Oh, do I show the diagram?
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
Okay,
that's what we want.
wait me a moment. Oh, the diagram is here in our Notion. Here is the diagram, here is the direct link. Oh, we have another question. Oscar asked, oh, share the code. Well, the code at the end is not... When you practice for your interviews, please don't say, don't memorize problems. Like, it's really, in my opinion, it's really bad memorize problems. Memorize how to solve it. Why? Because if you memorize the problem and you go to the interviews and cheat with that, as I told you, could be really bad if they catch you cheating. Sergio, your diagram. Oh, I have. So try to memorize ways to solve the problems and etc. Don't focus a lot in specific problems. And again,
Especially because if the interviewer is thinking that you are cheating, maybe just reading the code from the internet or that you have seen this problem before, they are going to usually change the problem a little bit. And if you just memorize the solution but does not remember how to come up with that solution, you are in problem. The trouble.
yeah, sometimes during my mock interviews, I also like to catch people cheating. Why? I put like a common problem, but with with a little change. And I remember one of them, like it was the guy directly say, "Oh, this is in that way, in that way, and in that way." And I was like, "Okay, but why do you assume that? I can give you this." And they was like, "Oh," and he missed all the interview because of that. This is the diagram again, so you can follow these steps. Do you want to explain a little bit more, Sergio?
Just an overview of it. I was talking about this earlier. What I misunderstood, Oscar, but this is what I was referring to. This diagram is like a step-by-step flow that you can follow to achieve success in an interview. So it just basically tries to tell you what to do in every case. So if you don't know the solution, then it tells you what to do. Then if you are stuck in something, then it tells you what to do. For example, it says you could ask for a hint to your interviewer. And also it has some examples of what data structures or algorithms are commonly used in interviews. So basically it has almost everything you need to be aware of in an interview. So basically by just following, you will have a good interview, even if you don't have enough knowledge to probably solve the problem. So you will have a great performance. Of course, it requires practice for you to be able to follow it, because you have to like remember these steps and when to apply some steps and when not to apply the other steps, right? So yeah, just take a look at it and try to follow it in your next interviews.
Okay, so if you don't have more questions, this will be everything for today. Thanks to everyone for attending. If you have any other question, you can write us. If you want to start practicing, please join to our Discord and send a message in the Mox waiting list channel. And again, start practicing. It doesn't matter you feel that you don't know a lot. I mean, the best way to practice is mock interviews. Obviously, have a little bit of ideas of how to solve problems, etc. You can solve a couple of problems in lead code or interview bit, etc. But start practicing with mock interviews.
Yeah, usually the people that do not do mock interviews usually say that I'm not prepared. I going to want to study a little bit more, or I don't feel comfortable. Things like that. If you will prepare and you will feeling comfortable doing these things, then you already have done the. It's usually normal to not feel comfortable and don't feel prepared and things like that. We are learning these things.
Well, one more question. Is okay to schedule a mock with you if I'm still training DSI, data structure algorithms, or should I to feel really stronger? I suggest you to start practicing. If you are still training data structures, probably you are in the first semesters and you will be applying for an explorer position, explorer or Facebook University or Google Step position that are focused for the people that is in the first years of career. So with that interviews, the topics are not really hard. So we also try to, let's say, adapt the our interviews if you're applying for a explorer position, etc. So we will try to not ask a difficult topic, but if we ask a topic that you don't know, you can say, oh, I don't know that topic. Let's say that there are two ways of that. We'll explain you quickly the topic, enough to solve the problem, or we can change the problem. That's and it's also in interviews. So it's another way to practice.
In general, that is also valid for real interviews. If you are seeing a problem and it's for a topic that you have no idea how to solve it, it's also valid to say, I have no idea what heaps are or what bipartite graphs are or things like that. That is also valid.
Yeah, also shows that you at least know about that data structure, but it's okay if you don't remember how to use it, because all engineers that are working, they may or may not know that algorithm too. So they are like, oh, it's okay. I mean, we only want you to be sure that you know that algorithm exists. But if you don't remember how to use it, we can change to something that is more easy to implement or more easy to remember. But like when you say like, I don't know that topic, but I know that the topic exists, it's like really good. Like it's like, well, you are a good engineer.
Yeah, and as a funny as a funny story, one of our friends was applying for explorer position. He arrives to the interview, and the interviewer requires to introduce himself. And he said, "Oh, I'm applying for explorer position." And the interviewer said, "Wait, what? Explorer position? I think you are applying for an internship." So he changed the problem for one really more easier, like really easier. And we think because of that he passed the interview. So it's important that you mention to which position are you applying for.
Yeah, totally agree. Just summarizing everything that my partner said, it is just apply for a mock interview. It's never early and it's never too late. So just apply. It is
Okay,
just a win-win opportunity.
so if there are no more questions, again, thanks to everyone. See you next Monday. Bye-bye.
See you,
See you.
everyone. Thank you a lot for seeing my interview.
Really funny picture, Andres.
That's what's exactly like. I was feeling like that.